Good morning everybody. Today we're going to be looking at Raymond the 2CV who failed to start yesterday. I wanted to take him out for a quick drive round, yesterday being the 28th of November 2020. It was an essential journey to the shops, so I thought I would go in Raymond. However, he failed to start, and I traced the problem back to a lack of fuel coming through the fuel pump. So today we're going to have another look at it to see if we can take some of the wisdom of the internet, and in particular Mick Popker, who has suggested a way of effectively priming the pump to see if that will make it work. Failing that, I'll have to take the pump off, probably not today, and have a go that way. So without further ado, let's get fettling. So here's just the picture of the carburettor. We're going to start off by demonstrating why I think it's the fuel pump, because there's a lack of fuel coming through this. Let's put the torch in a suitable place. That lights it up, hopefully. Right, this is the fuel input pipe, comes up from the fuel pump, which is sort of down the bottom. Hopefully you'll be able to see it in a second. Not easy to get the camera on it. Just bear with. So yeah, the fuel pump is just at the end of this this stick. It doesn't really come out that well on the camera, but it's right down there, and it looks a bit of a beast to have to try and replace, but if that's what we have to do, it's what we have to do. Not necessarily have to replace it, but certainly take it apart and service it. But as I say, I've been given some good tips on the internet as to ways in which I can possibly overcome this. So let's have a go at doing that. The first thing we'll have to do is to take some of the air filter apart so I can see what's going on inside the carburettor. It's not going to necessarily be that easy to do one-handed, but first thing we need to do is to take this bit of connecting pipe off, which is just held on by these cable ties. It came off yesterday, so I know it'll come off and go back on easily enough with the cable ties. So, that's it. So that's that removed, and then we can see inside the carburettor. And this here, as I say, is where all the input comes in. It looks extremely dry inside there. But certainly there was nothing coming through there. So what we'll do next is we'll take this pipe off, and I'll crank the engine, and what should happen is fuel should come through. Now I do know that you've got fuel coming into the input side of the pump. I took the pipe off yesterday at the bottom end and got absolutely covered in petrol, so I don't really intend to do that again today. So I know there's plenty of fuel, but it's not coming up this pipe here. Just behind this nut here is a filter. Now that filter was bone dry as well, so that initially is what I took off just to alert myself to what was going on. So without further ado, I shall get a screwdriver. We'll take this off here, and I'll crank the engine, and we'll see what happens. Try and do this one-handed, hopefully it will work. One of the hardest things I'm finding at the moment is actually trying to get the light down here so that you can actually see what's going on. So that's when I wriggled this off yesterday. I had to just pry a little bit with the screwdriver as well. So that's it. So that's the pipe down there. Somebody suggested this pipe could have degraded or inside, which is a very valid point. I'm not sure that is the case, because the car was running perfectly a month ago when I left it. The other interesting thing is when I switched the ignition on, I wondered why I couldn't hear the fuel pump sort of making priming noises. And of course I realised that it's a mechanical fuel pump, not an electric one, so it wouldn't make any noise, would it? Anyway, I'm just going to go and crank the car and see if any fuel comes out of there. Well, the amount of cranking I just gave that should be absolutely flooded with fuel there, but it isn't, so would rather suggest to me it's definitely not coming up through that pipe. So the received wisdom is to fill the float chambers up with fuel and try and start the engine then, on the basis that the mechanical fuel pump will then hopefully start to suck as the engine's running. What I'm just struggling to do at the moment is to actually see how the hell to fill up the float chamber, because this is the input here. This is a funnel I've got here, which is straight, and I can't actually see how to get something in there, so I might have to see if I've got a bit of pipe, alternatively take the bottom end of the fuel feed pipe off and fill it through that tube into the carb. So that's going to be my next job, is to hunt around to see what I've got in the garage that I can possibly budget with. I'm not sure whether, if I put fuel in there, where that would go to, whether it would go to the float chamber or just bugger things up completely. Not really wanting to risk that. The other alternative is, of course, to take the top off the carburettor. So as far as I know, the float chamber is down here. But it seems to be a bit of a long-winded way of doing it, when the wisdom I've had is that you should be able to do it with a funnel. I'm just not sure where to put the funnel. So after much swearing and cussing, I managed to get the fuel pipe off at the bottom end, and absolutely nothing came out. So it's obviously bone dry, that side of the pump. So I'm now going to attempt to fill the float chambers by pouring petrol through that small, come on, focus, thank you, through that small pipe there. I did actually take the pipe off fully at both ends and had a look through it just to see if there was any blockages. There's no blockages in there, so it's not a blocked pipe. But I'm going to put the camera down and hopefully fill up the float chambers by, say, just tipping some fuel down that hole there. Well, hopefully I've got some fuel in the float chamber now. It didn't go quite as to plan, shall I say. As you saw, I took the fuel pipe off from both ends and then poured petrol down the fuel pipe from the bottom end as the easiest way to get petrol into the carburettor. However, I'd forgotten to tighten the top clamp on the fuel pipe, so as I was pouring it in, I was alerted to a dripping noise, as all the petrol I was pouring in was actually just coming out from the joint. So I tightened that up, I filled it up with fuel. Hopefully there's enough in there. It's a bit of a beast of a job. I'm going to put the air filter back together before I try and start the car, because quite frankly, if this hasn't worked, then it is going to have to be a fuel pump off job, and that's not something I'm doing today. I have discovered that a new fuel pump is under 30 quid. Part of me says, why am I going to bother to try and dismantle and refurbish a fuel pump when it's only 30 quid? The other part of me says, yeah, but it'd be quite interesting to do. So what I might actually do is buy a new fuel pump and take the other one apart anyway and see if I can get it working. So I'm going to put the thing back together and then we're going to see if we can start Raymond. Okay, so here we go. Let's see what happens. It'll take a few cranks, I'm sure. That's on, the choke's on. Marvellous! We have liftoff! Well, there you go. Raymond is alive and kicking. Absolute sincere thanks to Mick Popka, or Michelin Man, for his sage advice about just filling the float chambers up. I'm not sure if I did it the right way or whatever, but it seems to have worked. absolutely floods of smoke coming out the back of Raymond, but I still think he's running a bit rich, but the choke is on. So there you go, all is well. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and a like, because that does help the algorithms and get the films seen. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a future episode of Wolfie's Wheels. Bye.